Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. It is the end of May, and I am so happy to have returning back to the podcast once again, Joshua. You might know him as HylianDescent on the Twitchverse or Hyrule Gaming Group, and we're going to be talking about all of that and more. Joshua, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
This is episode number 3 for you. You have willingly come back a third time.
Well, you're a great host, Tails. So I think that speaks volumes right there.
It is my pleasure, and I like to let people know sometimes, like, you know, you have a great community of people that follow you on Twitch, and it's very evident, like on my side of things, when I'm looking at like my statistics for episodes, because you have 2 episodes, one that came out in 2019, and then another that came out in 2020, and both of them are in the top 20 of like episodes that I've done for the um by the time this comes out, we're going to be getting close to the 6 year mark. So it's fascinating to watch that, like both of your episodes are just creeping up even further into like the top spots of downloaded episodes for Tales from the Fandom.
Oh, that's so crazy. Do you think that we can get another in the top 20?
I would not put it past the community to at least download it. They might not listen to it, but to download it and get the numbers up, because your second one, the one that we did in 2020, that one really climbed through the ranks a lot quicker than I expected, and is like, oh dang, like you've been holding like the two spots that you're in for a long time now, and there really hasn't been a lot of movement for challenging you.
That's pretty exciting. I like that. I like that. It's been a lot of fun um documenting the journey through your show here, and the community definitely comes out. So it's surprising to hear that, especially considering it's not necessarily something we push a ton.
Hmm.
We'll talk about it here and there. I'll bring up your website when you pop into the chat, but usually that's just that bulk of people who hear about it when it first releases, and then maybe a little bit, uh, every once in a while it gets mentioned on the show. So it's cool to hear that, despite even a ton of advertising, that there's still a lot of love being shown to these podcasts. Because I think it's cool. You're one of the only people, besides for myself, that are kind of documenting this journey. It's like a kind of a special thing. So I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it's like a time capsule of like, a certain time of what you are doing on your, like on Twitch, and you've got like the videos and everything. And I'm sure you've got a hard drive full of some of your saved clips and streams and stuff. But it's like to go back and then listen to like your ideas at the start, like 3 years ago in 2019, and then to like see the evolution and changes and steps that you've had since then.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, for me, it's fun to be brought onto these types of shows because it even makes me think back on some of the journey, maybe things that, because I'll go back and I'll watch the old shows before I come back, get an idea of maybe what I talked about then, maybe get an idea of what we're going to talk about today, and it's fun. It's having me kind of think in that mindset of, oh wow, what was I trying to accomplish? Have I accomplished that? Is that something I'm still working towards? So it's a lot of fun, even for me, because you're not always keeping up with all that stuff as you journey. Sometimes taking a moment to reflect can be super healthy. So I actually enjoy it.
Absolutely. Now, at the start of the introduction, I mentioned that you're Hylian descent of the Hyrule Gaming Group, and that I think has been one of the bigger changes since we last talked. Is that you transitioned from the Hyrule Gaming Group name to Hylian descent, and I know, like, I'm in the chat and I hear the it occasionally be brought up, but what was the reasoning, or what was the story behind go ahead and move from Hyrule Gaming Group to Hylian Descent as, like, your Twitch platform at this point?
I think that's actually the perfect place to start. Coming back through third podcast, If you don't know, I'm sure you've been in the stream. We're going into our 4th year of streaming. We just had our 3rd anniversary. It's almost insane to think that out loud. It's actually pretty crazy. And as you mentioned, last year we went through one of the biggest changes, scariest changes for me, of rebranding 2 years in, 2.5 years, or I guess 3. Going into the 3rd year, April pretty much made the decision around the anniversary last year. And it was, like I said, scary, intimidating, not too sure how people were going to react. But the mindset going into it was based around the idea that I still wanted to keep the original dream alive of Hyrule Gaming Group from that first podcast we had, that the idea of having a collective of creators come together originally was, one channel. Now, with a better understanding of Twitch, realizing that it's more than that. There's the one channel idea was novelty, it was fun, it was honorable, but I realized that we can still pursue that dream through other means, through the stream teams, through just creating a network of creators. And as I started to, gain more understanding of Twitch and content creation, I realized that I had to focus on my own success to help others find theirs. And to reiterate that, how could I help others find success if I haven't found my own? And I realized maybe I was getting lost in the identity of the group versus focusing on myself. Number one, HylianDescent of the Hyrule Gaming Group. Not only giving myself more attention and focusing on my own success to hopefully broaden and reach out and uplift others around me, but also giving others room within Hyrule Gaming Group to claim their own stake. And that was the biggest factor. I realized that how could people have room to claim stake within Hyrule Gaming Group, to call it home, if I was the Hyrule Gaming Group, this face of it? I felt like I lost the point. I felt like it's somewhere in there I lost the mission, and that in order to make room for others to grow alongside me, I needed to step back a little bit and take the light off of me directly. Speaking specifically towards, Hyrule Gaming Group and this whole idea we had going into the streaming, 3 years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that whenever you had changed, either I had been away, like on vacation or something, and then all of a sudden I was like, I see HylianDescent, which is the his backup like Twitch channel, and there's a lot of people there, and I see I see the partner tick, and it's like, okay, I guess something happened, and eventually I heard the story on one of your streams. I was like, okay, I get it, and I do get that, because when we first talked way back in 2019, like the concept was awesome of having like rotating people through the channel, and that way it's like almost it would be a 24-hour type channel where you have people in time slots.
Right.
But yeah, watching and getting to know how Twitch works, whether it's through watching other streamers or talking to Twitch streamers for the podcast, it definitely is it's harder to do something like that. And the stream teams are where it seems like it's more of a help versus like trying to figure out schedules, and then how are you going to break up like subs and revenue and stuff like that, where it gets complicated.
Very complicated. And it even came down to the idea that maybe not everybody's goal on Twitch is the same. And if we were to have people joining on one channel, maybe the content that's being produced by different people might be under, different uh, production levels. Maybe one person is really just trying to enjoy themselves. Maybe they don't care about the entertainment value or the value they're bringing to the table in general, and then maybe somebody else does. And it really, when I really started breaking it down, pros and cons list and stuff like that, it really, I started realizing, it's stuff you just mentioned. How would we really break this up? And there was a moment where I was a little disheartened. I almost felt like maybe I didn't succeed.
Hmm.
There was a moment where I was like, this concept was novelty, it was honorable. Maybe this was just not, maybe I was ahead of myself, right? And through the name change and through last year, I came to the conclusion that that's not exactly the case. And in fact, if you look at the stream teams and if you look at our discords and our communities and how they all interact with each other, we've almost started creating our own little bubble, our own little space on Twitch. And through all of that, I think we really have found that same concept in just like a different form, a different medium, and it's cool. It's cool to think that maybe I did find success in creating that vibe where, sure, you can't come to this channel 24 hours and find a different type of content at 6 p.m. But if you go to the Hyrule Gaming Group stream teams, you're almost guaranteed to find someone live, and maybe they're doing something completely different than I do at 8 a.m. in the morning. And in some ways, we kind of did create that experience in a different way. And it's cool to think about. It's cool to say, hey, we did find success, maybe not directly the way we wanted, but it's there. It's there. We have a bright community, big, bright community. The support is out there. It's really cool.
It is, it's not only that you have like one stream team, but you have like two stream teams. You have the Hyrule Gaming Group team, and then you have an affiliate team, which I will say I'm a part of, even though I haven't streamed in who knows how long, probably months and months and months. It's always a goal of like, I'd like to do this, and then trying to like work it in. Not sure how yet, figuring it out. But it's nice to have like so many different options. Like you click on this either stream team, and you're almost guaranteed to have at least one person on either team streaming something of some kind, and it may not be something I'm interested in, but I want to go support that team member and check them out and see what they're doing and give them encouragement.
Right. Exactly. It's super cool. And I like the idea. I'm glad that you mentioned both teams, because the idea behind it, being one team having a little bit more freedom. You mentioned yourself, you're a part of the team, but you don't even stream that actively, and that's kind of the point of that team, to really encourage just creativity in general. And that's something I've embraced over this past year, is the idea that some of the value that I can add into the world with my content is embracing creativity, encouraging creativity. And the affiliate team does just that. We're encouraging that creativity and saying, hey, if you're just streaming for fun, you're in the Twitch space, you don't take this as serious as maybe others, but still join our collective anyways. Maybe you'll get a little love, right?
Exactly. Now, I do want to ask. I got a couple questions, and we'll see where it goes. With the first one is, and it's one that I brought up, I think, for the second podcast that we did, is that 2 years ago there were a number of people within the community that had like changed their name to like put HGG at the end or at the beginning, to kind of represent the community. And as a viewer currently, I've noticed that that has kind of changed or dropped off. And I know that you had like thoughts 2 years ago about like it's great that they're doing it, great that they're representing the community, but also like with them doing that and having that representing the community, it's not something that you could really. I'm not going to say control, but if they did something in somebody else's chat and they're like, "Oh, HGG," coming back to you, um, almost like in that representation kind of thing. But I've noticed that that has kind of gone away with the shift to HylianDescent. Is that something that you've noticed? Is that something that like factored into, the name change?
Oh, that's a really good point. As you mentioned, a year, or I guess it would be, I keep forgetting that we're 3 year anniversary. 2, 3 years ago. Whew. There was a lot of that going on. And I will be real. It left me a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, for sure. And I actually forgot we talked about that a little bit. Must have breezed over that in my recaps. And it wasn't the most comfortable situation. I liked it. I thought it was super cool that people wanted to be a part of this collective. But I am kind of happy that to see it kind of dwindle. I had noticed, to answer that question, I have noticed. And I didn't really think about it a lot. And now that you have me thinking about it, maybe it's a combination of the name change, a combination of me actually openly expressing, not only through your podcast but before in stream, that it wasn't something that I was the biggest fan of.
Hmm.
I know I've mentioned it a couple times in the public space, including the podcast that we did, the second one, I believe, or maybe even the first. And so yeah, I didn't notice. I didn't actually make the correlation, but you could very well be right. Since about June, that's when we would have changed it all. And I think it was even happening a little bit before that. Maybe the novelty of the community itself was wearing off. I did announce the plans to change the name 6 months before the name change happened. So if I really think about it, I'd say that maybe the fall off of the HGG names started happening probably last year around this time, and that makes sense. That lines up with the name change, the channel name change. So I'd say it's for the better, and it's hard to ignore the correlation. I think those things definitely have to be connected in some way, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's just something that, it was recognizable of like, oh, like their name is either like completely changed or they've removed just like the HGG part. And it's like, okay, continuing on. Um, the other question I have, and like I approach this question because again, you have a wonderful community of people behind you supporting you, whether it's other Twitch streamers or like just in general the community at large. When we last talked 2 years ago, you had hit partner, you were pushing, 100 plus viewers, give or take, at that point, a little bit more, I believe, at times. 2 years later, which we're recording in mid-April, episode comes out end of May. You're averaging, 250, 300, 350. It definitely has the waves depending on like the game that you're playing and what's going on. How has that either affected you or changed you when it comes to like your work, like with Twitch? Obviously, I see how fast the chat goes, and I know sometimes like you're doing things, then you catch up. But what's been the biggest like change with having so many more people, whether it's in stream or watching or chatting? Like what's been like your biggest change or challenge with having your viewership almost triple in 2 years?
Oh, man, when you put it that way, it does feel like it's something that happened so gradually that when you word it that way, it's like, wow, it has tripled, hasn't it? And I think that because of the gradual progression, it was actually a little bit easier for me to adjust over time. But there was certain moments where you saw like steep increases due to events within the Animal Crossing community, being the main fandom that I'm like involved in. And to answer your question, I guess I can go a couple directions. One being, how have I changed my style, my stream environment? And I will say that as your community grows, you have to be a little less personal. a little less. And I strive to keep a personal connection with as many viewers as I can. But one of the biggest changes and challenges has been, how do I still provide value through entertainment while also still providing value through, that almost parasocial, which isn't the most healthy from what I understand, how that term works, how that phrase, what it means, but almost that, how do I still provide that very personable experience, which some people do value. People find value in having that personable connection with the streamer, with a person, for multiple reasons. You can go to the direction of like loneliness and stuff, and you can also just go to companionship when you're at work. You're trying to vibe through the day. And I think that has been the biggest challenge. Finding that balance in stopping to read chat, but also entertaining, continuing to play the game or interact with the game. Keeping multiple conversations going at one time has gotten even more and more intense the more viewers that I have in the chat. I think that the biggest hurdle has been just keeping that personal connection while also still entertaining. And I've really focused on that this past year, I will say. So it's good that you brought that up, because that's been one of the major focuses, is how can I still provide a personal connection with the people that I really do care about. A lot of my viewers, a lot of people that have been supporting me for a long time, people still in there from day one, but also still push the show forward, the content forward, try new things, stretch out, push myself into directions that I've never been in before. And not just with the games and with the content itself, but with stuff like letting myself miss a message. There's a point in time where I tried to read every single message in the chat. And you can imagine at this point that is just not possible. So a learning experience through these years has been, it's letting myself, it's okay to miss a message, skimming, maybe not reading every message out loud. To give you a perfect example, just these past couple months, I've worked on a new technique where instead of reading the message that they said out loud and then answering it, reading the message, then just only answering it, reading it in my brain, soaking it in, and then only answering it, maybe even mentioning their tag in chat. This is like a strategy that I'm starting to hone, and to help me better navigate chat. It is its own beast. How do I navigate all of these people? How do I soak in all of this information and still give a genuine response while also playing the game, while also entertaining, while also worrying about, the other 15 things you're thinking about while you're streaming? And it's gotten to it. There was a point in time where I think that I did hit a little bit of a wall, where maybe there was I couldn't really identify any time that this happened, but I know for a fact that there had to have been a moment in which I maybe hit like a wall where I was either leaning too much on chat or not enough. And I think it's truly the balance as a Twitch streamer, YouTube streamer, live content, and in this fashion, is to not lean too much on chat, and to be able to provide your own entertainment through the game, through your own commentary. Because if you do get caught up only reading chat, then it really does start feeling like a couple hundred personal experiences happening at once, personal interactions. That's alienating. What about the audience that are watching from the television that are not in chat, right? And you always have to be thinking about them as well. For every 100 people that are in my chat simultaneously, there's 200 that are watching from the couch. And I can't just focus on the chat, because then the couch watchers, we'll call them, don't get their energy. They don't get their entertainment. It turns into just, at that point, a very awkward talk show between 100 people and one guy. And that's a little weird. And I think that's been my biggest challenge, is how do I balance it? And that technique I mentioned has been a really big key. I've just been watching more successful content creators than myself, and like really trying to understand how they navigate chat. And one of the biggest things I picked up is not only is it okay for me to miss some messages, it's also okay to, maybe skim messages, maybe learn to reply to people without reading their message out loud. And, from a podcast standpoint, from a radio standpoint, that can be a little weird because if somebody puts a message in the chat saying, "Hey, are you doing Tails podcast today?" And instead of reading that out loud, all I say is, "Yeah, I'm doing that podcast today. Thank you, Jacob." And I move on. Somebody listening and not watching the chat might be like, "What is he talking about?" Right? So it's weird because you have to find that balance. Like, what messages can you just answer the person and move on? And what messages do you maybe want to read out loud? Do you maybe want to interact with more, engage with more? Is that a good conversation topic for a show like mine? Because I do a bit of more of a talk show, as you know, in a lot of ways. Even when I'm playing Kirby and stuff, it's a bit more of a talk show than maybe your average streamer. And I think that certainly allows me a little bit more room to talk and to engage with chat messages, but it's still, there's a balance to be found. I think that the future of my success lies within that balance. And over this year, I've worked on it and I've learned, because, that entertainment value kind of has to come above all else. And as you focus on that more and more, maybe the chat gets a little less love. And that's a hard thing to say out loud because, these are the people that built my stream right alongside me. So it's tough. That was definitely a good question, because I think that's not only just important to acknowledge for my journey, but any aspiring streamers out there listening would do well to identify that balance, how much you are leaning on chat versus providing content for your chat. And I think over my 3 years, that might be one of the biggest things I've learned as a content creator, like that, maybe I should focus on or work on.
I got a last question, and it relates not only to like your Twitch stream in the community, but it's something that like I've had to deal with and process as as the years go on with podcasting, is that a lot of my early people, a lot of my early guests, right, like 2016-ish era, some of them aren't around anymore. Like there's definitely some guests who for whatever reason they're not on the internet, they've kind of moved on from whatever they're doing, and I've lost touch with them. And I've noticed in the chat, um in the community, that there's definitely been some of the normal people, some of the regular people that I would always see in chat have kind of like, they I don't know if they've moved on, or they're just doing other things, or having to go back to work, with COVID and everything, and now that people are returning to work where they maybe were home for the past 2 years or past year and a half. How do you like do you see it? How do you handle where like the like some of these people that have been around for years and years, they're not there? Like, is that something that you like process? And how do you process like your, because for me, like, and it's hard to get out, but it's like, I miss these people. I miss because we had these
Yeah.
conversations, and they helped to start this podcast, and like I hold them in such high regard, and it's like, dang, like I miss them, but there's no way to contact them, essentially. Like they've kind of just gone from what they had been doing, and there's no contact information anymore. And watching the stream, I definitely have noticed that there's been some of that shift within the community where they're just not around anymore. I was just curious, like how you see it or how you feel about it.
That's a great question to hit a streamer with. And I think that no matter the size of stream, you are always going to deal the with that feeling, the feeling of building a connection with someone digitally or not. And at some point them just not being there anymore. Sometimes you worry about them. Sometimes they'll pop up in your brain while you're randomly eating dinner, or you're playing some video game in your free time, where somebody says something in a stream and makes you think of that person. And you really do build connections with people. And as a streamer, I'll be the first to tell you that, oh, we notice. And oh, sometimes it might even weigh on us a little. But generally, I have an understanding of the internet. I've been on it for my whole life. And I usually just like to, I think, the best. Yeah, they're likely just living their life, as you said. They're caught up with work. They're just off the internet. And that's usually a good thing, right? So it's that's what I go to. But you can't help sometimes to wonder, where are they? What are they up to, right? And we've definitely had our stream of people. I say that in the sense of, our flow of people that have interacted with our stream. Plenty have come and gone, and plenty have um, even returned over the years. I've recently been randomly getting a surge of people. I say surge, but it's been a little bit, that have been showing up to the stream after like a year of not being there. It's this really weird phenomenon recently. Like everyone, spring comes back in April, and people think Animal Crossing, right? March, they think New Horizons. They pick up the game again. They go on Twitch, and there's Hylian. Oh yeah, I haven't been here in a while. I imagine that's what's happening, and so I've been randomly just getting like a pretty healthy surge of people that I haven't seen in maybe a year and a half, just like popping in my front door again. Hey, haven't been here. You don't even remember me? And I'm like, of course I do. Like, of course. Like, it's kind of weird. You feel like a teacher almost. You had those teachers that were really good about remembering every little detail about you, and you're just like, what the heck? Like, how do they do this? And it's like, yeah, streamers, a lot of us have that ability, and we build those connections. I think it doesn't affect me too negatively. I've definitely had a couple falling outs with, community members here and there, and, even like streamer friends that I just don't engage with like I used to for whatever reason. The streaming environment can be stressful. And through that stress, sometimes connections can be lost, and it can be a sad thing. And so it even goes past the viewership for me, or the viewers rather, to even streamer friends and creator friends, and people who were maybe amongst us in our ranks who have stepped away. And it can be a little tough, but it's just one of those things that you have to identify, that people are going to always move on. It's a forever changing universe, forever moving forward. I'm a space fan, so I like to think about the idea that it's always expanding, right? Like that's kind of my thing. And that's just a part of it. That's just a part of it. So I try not to let it affect me too much. But to answer your question, yeah, we feel it, and I feel it. And there's definitely been more than one moment, whether viewer or even more so, people that I've considered friends that I might not engage with as much as I used to, just because of distance, time. Like you said, maybe they just disappeared and I don't know how to contact them, or even as far as just us, our wants and needs, and our energies just kind of dividing, and us going into different directions, which is a very natural thing that happens throughout life, between friends and family. So I think at the end of the day, it can be a lot, having that revolving door of human connections. And I don't think content creation is for the faint of heart. Not to be too cheesy or over dramatic, but I really do think that it's a lot. It's a lot. It's that forever revolving door. You try not to think of people as replaceable. That's my thing. That's why I couldn't manage. I wasn't a manager. Can never be one, because I don't like the idea of thinking of people as expendable, right? And it's tough, but like that door is forever revolving. And if I don't keep myself moving forward always, I I feel like I might get caught up within that revolving door. Whereas it's important for me to still continue to build relationships and build connections, is my point. Even if there's a little bit of weight here and there, or a little, jab here and there of a lost community member that just hasn't been around, or somebody that I was really connected with. I try not to let that stop me from still continuing to build connections, because, at the end of the day, that is just kind of part of it, as you've noticed, even with your podcast. And I'm sure we're not the only ones. I'm sure there's plenty of this style of content, whether it be podcasts, live streams, YouTube videos, commenters, Twitter, or that social media energy. There's always going to kind of be that revolving door that you have to just accept as a part of the process, and that person could be your biggest supporter and they could be in your chat every day, and a blink of an eye, snap of a fingers, they're just not there anymore. And maybe they got married and had a kid and you just didn't know. Just like, so again, you don't have to think negative. It's not, rarely is it ever they're hurt or they're injured or anything. Usually it's just, oh, I got caught up, exams hit me, and then I finished my bachelor's, and now I'm here 7 months later, and have you played the new Pokemon, Hylian? And I'm just like, where you been? Like, right? Like, so it's cool, but it definitely feels good. A good conclusion there is it always feels so good to have someone walk back into your front door after a long time. It always feels so freaking cool. Like, oh, I haven't been here in a year. And it's like, oh, like, hey, you're back. Like, what's up? Even if they were just a super casual chat or a lurker, it always feels super cool to see someone come back engaging with your content. It's one of the highlights for sure of the day, that it happens.
Absolutely. Now, we're gonna take a breath here. We got a lot of wonderful Twitch conversation here, and we're gonna shift over, and I'm gonna start off with a quote that I actually heard in someone else's Twitch channel today.
Okay.
And they said, and they weren't talking about you. They're asking, just out loud. They said, "I do not understand how someone can play Animal Crossing every day and keep doing it." And this is Animal Crossing is your bread and butter. We've been doing Animal Crossing with you since with New Leaf and City Folk, and going back to the OG Animal Crossing on GameCube. Was
That's right.
there when New Horizons launched and all the updates and everything's going on. And shockingly, and I pulled it up because I was going to do something later on, but September is the 20th anniversary of Animal Crossing on the GameCube coming to the States. And I have to ask, I guess I'll ask the question for the other streamer of, how do you keep going with Animal Crossing? Like, are there days where you're just like, I know I said I'm going to do Animal Crossing, but I just can't today. Like, I just can't with my villagers or my island.
It's a good question. It's not always easy, but I feel like I have it easier than your average caster, your average streamer, because my passion for Animal Crossing just knows no limits. I just love the game. I love the franchise. I love interacting with it. I think throughout this journey, these 3 years, I've had my ups and downs with my connection with the game for sure. It went from being a game that I played seasonally. My actual growing up with this game, 15 plus years or whatever, it was seasonal. I played it during a certain part of the year, winter, when I was at home a lot, when I wasn't leaving the house, when I needed some buddies, and I'd go hang out with my Animal Crossing friends, right? My little ribbutts and all that. And it slowly but surely, I got super attached and like connected to the game more than I had ever been. And it just, like I said, I think I got it easy. I think that not everybody can do something that they love, that they're super passionate about, and then keep the energy and the passion for it. And to maybe give a couple of my little secrets with it, since you asked so kindly, I think really it's my creative approach towards the game. It's that I will never let the game fall out of relevancy, even for myself. For myself first, let alone for my viewers, for the Animal Crossing space, the universe, Twitch. I'm out on a mission. I recently was watching a podcast. This guy, Devin Nash, I'm not sure if you ever heard of him, does like marketing and business stuff. And He was on Twitch and stuff in the past, and all sorts of like self-improvement style content, right?
Mhm.
And he asked this super cool question, essentially, or he wanted you to ask yourself a question of, to go out and solve a problem. Like, what problem can I solve? And if you think about that throughout, this was like a business talk. It was like marketing, but I was able to apply that. The same guy had me ask the question once in the past, and so this has been a big year of improvement for myself. What kind of value do I bring to the table with my content? That's a really big question I asked myself over this year. And not to go too far into that, we kind of stepped away from the Twitch stuff, but with Animal Crossing, that is a big part of it. I ask myself every day, every week, what kind of value am I bringing to the Animal Crossers, and how can I improve upon that? How can I create a unique environment where I am producing content like no one else in the genre, in the fandom? I want to be the guy that is pushing the fold in the Animal Crossing universe. And instead of just falling into the same, styles of content, to give examples, the villager hunts, the designing streams, yes, I do that stuff, but I always have strived over these 3 years to do more, to splice in the old games, to provide, different experiences. Last year in April, we did the 7 days of every Animal Crossing in history. Let's see where the game began, right? We're 10-minute challenges, design competitions within the community, doing everything I can to encourage freedom, encourage creativity through the game, through the freedom of Animal Crossing, and and just provide a space for Animal Crossers to still feel relevant, right? It's in this day and age, it's so tough because these games come out and then within a couple weeks, nobody even cares. And then some of us are left sitting here playing a game that feels dead. You ever heard that? The dead game. I'm sure you heard it so many times. Dead game. Who cares? And it's like, I don't like that. So I do kind of go out with a mission. Nah, it's not noble. I'm not, I don't have a big swelling head here. It's just a cheesy little self fulfillment mission of I want to provide unique Animal Crossing content, and I want to prove to the Animal Crossers and as well as the rest of the gamers out there that Animal Crossing is so much more than that meets the eye, so much more than just a cute little game that you hang out with your villagers, that we take so much more out of this game. And you've been there, what the Animal Crossers pull out of this game firsthand. We it's such a vibrant community, and there's so many different walks of life. Our stream alone, between from 15-year-olds to college students to adults to family people to older, members of the community, all age groups. And I think there's something special with Animal Crossing and that passion to create content that's unique and to continue to provide a space on the internet for a game that I never had a space for as a kid, that always felt weird playing. That's where the root of it comes from. I played Animal Crossing GameCube. I was the only kid besides for one other kid in my whole school that ever even heard of the game. And it's like, I had to go on the internet. I had to go to animalcrossingcommunity.com. Still exists, by the way. Go check it out. And go to forums, dude, to like find friends. And there were like 30-year-olds over there. It was weird, it was like I couldn't like find anybody who cared about the game. And to be alive and to be a part, not even just a part, to be leading the charge in the Animal Crossing community at my current age and status in life is like one of the more fulfilling things ever. It's a game that I felt so passionate about as a kid, and I felt so misunderstood in the sense, woe is me, teenage years. But like, no one got it. No one understood why Animal Crossing was beautiful. All my friends were busy playing, Call of Duty and Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy and like Smash Brothers, and they're looking at me like, is this dude real? I'm running around in this game listening to Snow Crunches, smiling, and my friends are like, Snow Crunches? What are you talking about? Come play a real game. The amount of times I heard somebody say that to me. Don't you play real video games? And it was like, now we have not only one of the best Animal Crossings, but the biggest and brightest Animal Crossing community since New Leaf and ever. It's huge. It's vibrant. You look at my Twitch channel, right? Hundreds of people a day will gladly come watch me poke around and like shake some trees. And that's it. That's my answer. A lot of words, but to summarize it, just I, I really am passionate about Animal Crossing, about the fandom, and I do have a mission. I do have and then the words of Devin Nash, I guess, a problem that I am trying to solve, and that problem is the the energy around Animal Crossing. I don't want it to diminish. I don't want it to fall off. I want to show people that this game is and this community is going to be around forever, because we are. Like, it's not just me. If you go on the YouTube, if you go to Twitter, if you go to other streamers on Twitch, there's still plenty of passionate crossers that are right here. I just so happen to be blessed with a big and bright enough community to where maybe I get seen more than others. But at the end of the day, if you dig around enough, there's plenty of crossers amongst us, with plenty of people that are doing the same thing I am for probably longer than me, 3 years, and plenty. So I think that I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate the acknowledgement that I have kind of taken hold of Animal Crossing, and I think that really my passion kind of carries me through the game. I have really not hit a moment of burnout with Animal Crossing. I have with my stream, but with Animal Crossing itself, the worst it's gotten is a morning, or every once in a while I do wake up and go, I cannot hear another Animalese sentence. I can't handle the I can't do this. I need to go play some Zelda. Believe me, there is plenty of mornings where I wake up and my brain is like, if I don't get a palate cleanser today, I will throw Animal Crossing out of the window. it happens. It happens, but I think that those types of mornings, I'll play something different. And then instead of going right back to just regular old Animal Crossing, I'll pick up something fresh. All of a sudden, the next day I come back, I'll be doing something completely different. Hide and seek island experience, right? Something to just make it feel fresh. And I think that's super important to anything you do when it comes to content creation. You have to keep yourself entertained. Otherwise, how do you plan to entertain other people, right? And I think self-entertainment is a good starting point if you want to, keep things fresh. Make it fun for yourself. People enjoy watching you interact with that, right? That's it. Just make it fun for yourself. So I just think of as many fun things to do with the game. I have a list. I have multiple lists between computers and notebooks of me just writing Animal Crossing ideas down. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do a 1v1 bug competition. Oh, I should go make a TikTok short and do voiceovers. Oh, I should do a podcast called Blather's Broadcast and base it off of Animal Crossing, right? Like, I'm just constantly trying to, I'm forever expanding my content, maybe full circle to the universe comment there. So
Now you mentioned palette cleansers for Animal Crossing, and you do have them on your stream. You've got a number of games
occasionally,
you're cycling through. Just recently, Garden Story, Stardew Valley, Rune Factory, Kirby, Pokemon Arceus. I will say that you still, with the exception of Kirby, which you are self-proclaimed, you love Kirby. Kirby's like one of your mainstay franchises, and with Pokemon, but with like Garden Story, Stardew Valley, Rune Factory, even like
mm-hmm.
the Friends of Mineral Town and Pioneers of Olive Town, very much you're very much into like the farming sim life type simulators.
Yeah, I love them. And that's something that's kind of new that I've embraced. Yeah, I love them. I recently was actually just sharing some information with the community about growing your stream, and I mentioned that the real reason I started streaming Stardew was because it was a smooth transition from AC, and that's kind of the reason why I've kept that up. is because as a growing caster, I think it's important to find and acknowledge avenues and roads that you can go down and experiment and try making new content that maybe aren't such a rough, direction. You see a lot of Animal Crossing streamers go to Dead by Daylight. For some reason there's a connection there. And those are so night and day. And I get it. You need that palate cleanser. But I think that's a very rigid thing to do to your audience. You are basically alienating, potentially up to half the people that have came and called your stream home. So I think very intently about the games I choose to showcase on stream. And going into the second and third year, I realized, the second game we ever officially streamed more than just casually on was Stardew. And I was like, hey, maybe I should embrace this. Maybe I should just embrace farming sims. And I think I toyed with it a little bit over these past couple of years, but I think Story of Seasons Poot, Pioneers of Olive Town, was the first time that I really committed to it. And since then I have been pushing it even more. Like, it was a night stream thing and it just, people loved it. I loved it. I was having so much fun playing a brand new game. And I realized, I've always kind of had an affinity for these farming games, the simulation games. I like the time management vibe. It's fun to me. Why not, showcase my passion for those games to the community? So I will admit that I didn't play a lot of those games as a kid, just a bit, just a little bit of Harvest Moon here and there. But Animal Crossing was my main simulation game. I really didn't need many games from the same genre, the same style, right? So a little bit of farming, a lot of bit of AC, and then otherwise I was playing other stuff. I was diving into Zeldas and Diablo 2 and so I was a very diverse gamer and still am, but I I have found a passion for those farming sims and simulation games that I might not have had if it wasn't for streaming. And I enjoy it. I think it's a really good, side game, or a really good direction to take the channel when I am having those Animal Crossing growing pains where I'm just like, I'm over this right now, but I want something that still promotes growth within the community. I'll go for a farming sim.
Yeah, it's definitely, watching and then seeing the transitions as far as like the games go. They all generally fall into that category of, you're doing the time management, you're doing the farming, or with Stardew going into the caves and doing like how far down can you get in the caves and stuff like that. And it's interesting to watch because, as you said, your streams are very much, a talk show stream too. And I feel like when you have those games, you're able to focus, like, split your attention from the game to the community back and forth relatively easier than maybe a Dead by Daylight, or even a Kirby, where you're trying to work the level out and get through it, and you're like, you gotta focus, rather than, you know with the farming stuff, you can take a moment, check chat out, and then go back to what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's nice. It's almost, in some ways it feels like a crutch because it's something I'm so used to that it can be kind of hard to play games that aren't farming sims at this point. It can be hard. It can be, I'll pick up a game like Kirby and I'll notice that I haven't looked at chat for just even a couple minutes. And that's such a foreign feeling. And I'll be like, like, what is happening? Like, so it's hard. That balance is something that I'll continue to work on, over the next few years. But um, that is one of the few reasons that those sims just work really well. Again, you have to be passionate. You have to enjoy this stuff in order for it to really work for your broadcast. So that helps. But I think because of that, exactly what you just acknowledged, the ability to just pretty much at any point, I'm sitting there watering crops. I can look over the chat. The gameplay isn't necessarily the focus always in these types of games. It's mostly just like working through the motions when you're like tending to your farm, right? And that really does provide a space for me to better engage with my community. And I think as a stream my size, that's important. You know, I dare, would I ever say my stream is small? I have to stop. I have to get out of that because we're far from a small community anymore. And sometimes I still do kind of call us smaller because I'm always looking at the big boys out there.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, we are a very big stream. I just recently got approached by Stream Elements, and I was talking to one of their representatives, words, brain, reps, and they I mentioned that I was like, no, I'm not the biggest streamer, but I'd have stuff working for me. And this guy, like, he started laughing. We were in the call, and he's like, not a big streamer. And he like pulled up a bunch of stats and numbers, and he's like, buddy, you're in the top 0.5%. What do you mean? Probably less. And he's like looking at all my stats and numbers, and he's like, you gotta realize. He's like, it's about time you identify this. So sometimes I forget that I really do have a lot going on, and it's nice to be able to continue to engage with my chat, even though we are considered a big stream at this point. But I do kind of look towards the future and wonder if at a certain point, am I going to have to break away from that crutch of having the easier games and maybe teach myself to kind of get better at interacting with chat through the tougher games, the Zeldas and the Kirbys and the Marios. So it's something I'm forever working on for sure.
I think you handle yourself well with, especially the Zeldas. You've got the experience of playing them, multiple, run throughs of them, and it feels like with Zelda at least you've got that. And I'm not going to say it's a crutch, but you've got that experience of
Yeah,
what you're doing. You can take your eyes off to check on chat every now and then and keep up with it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like I do a pretty good job. There's just always room for improvement, I think.
Of course. Now, we're kind of looking towards the future as always, and you've hit on it a number of times during the podcast on, like, you're working towards the future, you're working towards what you're wanting to do on the game side of things. Animal Crossing aside, what are some games that you're looking forward to adding to the stream, maybe like this year? And I'm not going to say, I just want to say for the people listening, I'm not holding Hillian to whatever he says. I'm just curious to know if there's something that he's got his eyes on for like maybe this year.
So there's a couple. There's a couple for sure. Mario Strikers is intriguing, and how we could. There's like you could do like 4v4s, and I started getting some ideas with maybe like community battles or something really fun. Maybe me and another caster and three of their mods and three of my mods battle each other or something. That might be something super fun. Maybe some strikers, because the golf was kind of fun. We did do the golf last year. The newest Pokemon, it's supposed to be coming out in November. And I mentioned, speaking of fandoms, I've been a Pokemon fan. I've been playing since Blue, Game Boy, big old brick Game Boy, right? And I mentioned recently before Arceus came out that I think that Pokemon games aren't being made for me anymore. And like, maybe I'm just like falling out of the fandom. Like maybe it's time I move on, and just didn't really feel like Pokemon games were hitting the way that I wanted anymore.
Hmm.
And I tried to get into the competitive scene in Pokemon Generation 7 and a little bit in 8, and I really enjoyed that. I love, building teams and strategizing, but kind of fell out of interest for me. And it's hard with the stream. If I'm not doing that stuff on stream, it can be hard to keep up with it out of stream, right?
Right.
So the new between Legends of Arceus and the new Pokemon, I'm more excited about Pokemon than I've been since like Gold and Silver, back when I was like a early teenage, like 10, 12 years old. Like this is the potential breakthrough that Pokemon has needed for 10 years. That this is the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon at this point. And Arceus is like the starting, and this new Generation 9 could be it. And I am ready. I am on the edge of my seat about this game. I am ready, dude. That's going to be something I really look forward to playing. We'll definitely be playing that on stream. most certainly. Aside from that, Breath of the Wild 2 got delayed, even though we didn't have an official date. Of course, I'm going to be gobbling up that Zelda content.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to that's going in the next year. There was rumors of a new Mario Rabbids, and I played the first on stream as a night game, and people weren't really interested. But maybe the hype of a new game would bring some interest, and I might be checking that out if it comes out. And aside from that, I haven't really kept a ton of stuff on my radar. There's a couple indie farming sims that are on my radar. One's called One Lonely Outpost, coming quarter 3, quarter 4 of this year. That is Stardew Valley, but in space. And you land on a planet and you cultivate the planet and terraform it and create a society on this planet, starting from nothing but like a spaceship.
Mhm.
And that seems super cool. I'm a big space nerd. Um, and maybe a couple. There's one called Coral Island. So a couple of those indie, more low key, low budget farming sims I'm looking towards as well. But not a ton. I struck out a little bit last year with a couple stream ideas as well as just like personal time. So I think I'm kind of gonna maybe focus just going with the flow this year a little bit more, and just if something hits me, go for it. If not, maybe not premeditate as much. To touch on that, Diablo 2 remake came out last year and just kind of ended up not being what I thought it was going to be. And it was something I kind of hyped up and I kind of oversold on stream.
Mhm.
And I've learned in 3 years, you undersell, you don't oversell. And I oversold Diablo 2, and then within the first 2 days of streaming it, I instantly realized it was not for my community, and it was not going to be a good stream game for multiple reasons. And good thing I had enough self-awareness to identify this, because it was instantly, I was like, this is not working. And I backed off, I beat it on stream, and then I stopped. And I haven't even played it in my free time. And so that was an example of an approach that last year that I thought I was really going to get into, and I didn't. Looking for that nostalgia fix from my childhood, it just didn't really pan out. So I think Kirby's carrying the torch for me right now. Free time, and I played it a bit on stream. I'm really in love with Kirby, and I think I'll continue to enjoy that game in my free time for a while until I transfer to something else. And as far as the stream itself goes, we're just going to continue pursuing through some of these fresh farming sims that are coming out. Maybe hit the backlog a little bit. So you mentioned games that I'm looking forward to playing this year, and I can't help but mention maybe the fact that I'm going to be going back in time, and I have some plans to play a couple, do a couple playthroughs of some more retro stuff. I'm thinking this year we might be busting out Zelda 1 for the first time, more Breath of the Wild, and maybe along those lines. Like, I think some more Zelda is on the horizon for sure. So I might be hitting the backlog a bit.
Mhm. Okay. And I know you're with your ideas and stuff, and you brought it up throughout the whole conversation today. Uh do you have like tangible goals, not game wise, but for the stream? Are you like, this year I want to do X, Y, and Z, and see like either growth or see certain like opportunities or do stuff with the community or the stream teams? Like what is in your vision for like 2022 as far as you or the Hyrule Gaming Group?
A lot. So last year I kind of took a break. I decided going into the start of the year, going into our second year anniversary, going to our third year of streaming last year, around this time. I think this is the perfect time for this podcast because of that. I started hitting my first kind of energy of like burnout, and it kind of just hit me all at once. Because when I hit my partnership, I just I grinded harder. Instead of going the reverse, like, oh, I can take a break, I put everything I had into my stream, my first full year of partner. And it really started weighing on me as we went into, the first partnership anniversary that February and last year. And then it just started hitting me slowly but surely, the energy that the tank, the coal was running out and at the end of the train, the train car. And it was just really, so I really started kind of feeling like I needed to back off of some of the extras outside of stream. And I actually reached out to like the Hyrule Gaming Group Discord, the leaders and stuff, and I completely pulled out of everything. Completely. It was, I am going to focus on me, my health, and my stream. That's it. I can't keep doing all these extras. I need to breathe.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. So like all of last year really went to me and to understanding that I need to balance all of this and that I can't just work and I can't just grind. And even other things like identifying that there's more to streaming than just sitting there and streaming. And I have to get on YouTube and I have to get on making content on Twitter and diversify and start working on branching out of Twitch, because the success I found on Twitch is going to start diminishing the returns. And I'm going to have to find other avenues to gain more, to garner more viewership and to get more energy to my community, to my Twitch stream. And during all of last year, I just started figuring all that out and just really working on me. And going into this year, to answer your question, one of my biggest things is going back into the Hyrule Gaming Group. So this year, my biggest plan is where we've already started it. We're like reopening up the stream teams. We're going to start breathing more life into them, maybe try to get the stream teams interacting with one another within, one another's events, maybe some kind of a charity thing, or just some stuff to kind of get us identifying even further as a community, as a collective. I'm also going to be working on, pushing the Hyrule Gaming Group Discord and the community itself as a whole, and embracing the change that happened last year. So earlier in this podcast, you mentioned the name change. I want to embrace that. I want to push that forward and say, okay, now that I am HylianDescent of the Hyrule Gaming Group, let's better identify what Hyrule Gaming Group is. And through that thought process, I have identified that we are a collective of creators supporting creators. We're gamers, artists, musicians, streamers, content creators, viewers, whatever. And we come together to support one another, encouraging creativity through providing a network for people to interact with. Just the other day, you mentioned in the Discord you were looking for overlays and stuff. I want that information to be available. I want those resources to be there, and I want it to be within our community. And you come in and you say, hey, I'm an overlay artist, and you post there, and then the streamers are looking for overlays. They can maybe just reach out to people within our community and start to
Hmm.
build just ease of access for networking. I've recently mentioned that I'm going to be hosting a seminar for the stream team members to come and sit and just talk a very lighthearted conversation about like 3 to 5 bullet points that I think should be focused on if you're trying to take content creation as serious as I do. Right. And like really just providing that space for creators to mingle amongst like-minded individuals. And I never want us to fall into the energy of like lurk for lurk, which is actually against Twitch TOS. Follow for follow communities, lurk for lurk communities. That stuff is not allowed, and it's not okay. And that's the farthest thing I want from this community. I want this to just be a place for you to network and to interact with like-minded individuals. You don't join the community to look to gain anything. Don't, if you're coming to our community for that, with that mindset, you're already lost. That's not what this is. It's just a place for you to come and get inspired, to encourage creativity, to maybe find inspiration for your own creative endeavors. And that's really the focus of a Hyrule Gaming Group that I'm trying to shed a light on. And that's what I'm going to be pushing throughout this year, and trying to build on top of that concept, and properly identifying that I have succeeded in building a network of content for people to navigate, to watch, and to be at their fingertips. If you go to the Discord right now, you'll see there's always an active feed of streams being posted. It's I have managed to capture that very, again, novel, you know, essence that I wanted originally with this 24-hour stream and people with multiple people streaming on one channel. Really have captured the essence of that in a different way. And it's time that we identify that and we push that. And that's one of my biggest goals going into this year. And as far as personal goals, just continuing to build on the foundation. The growth is steady, as you've noticed. The growth is consistent. 3 years of streaming and we've tripled our growth. It's, if not more, it's there. I've certainly figured out some bit of a formula, and I just want to continue to better pursue, that that formula, the equations, and get garnering a better understanding of what is helping my success and what I could be doing to further it, and just genuinely enjoying putting out content. That's like, I don't want to lose that. So I'm always forever looking to find that balance of enjoying myself, but also, maybe living my life a bit more. I have acknowledged that maybe I have sacrificed a lot over 3 years, and it's time that I step off the gas a little bit. So you might see me focusing a little bit more on YouTube. I do have a goal of getting my YouTube pretty up there. That's like one of my biggest goals going into the next couple of years, is continuing to find success on Twitch while pursuing the YouTube, and maybe giving myself a little bit more time to relax, just a little. So,
Okay. Now, for people that aren't familiar with you or where to find you, haven't listened to the episodes or haven't, gone and checked you out along the social media areas or Twitch, what are the best places to find you?
you could find me mainly on Twitch pretty much every day. I try to stray away from times and stuff because they're forever changing, but you'll find me in the mornings, morning time, Eastern Standard, usually 8 a.m. right now. But generally a morning streamer on twitch.tv/HylianDescent, HylianDescent, Hylian Descendants. You'll also find me over everywhere, just HylianDescent, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I'm definitely on pretty much every platform possible at this point, even if I don't use them. So check me out for sure. Twitter being kind of my main place to engage with my content and to post when I go live and stuff. And of course, Twitch. Just come pop in and check us out. You'll find VODs there for days. Since we stream so much, there's always a nice flow of content for you to check out, even if I'm not around.
Absolutely. And I will have the links to all of those in the show notes on the Facebook page and website, along with links to Joshua's previous 2 episodes. So that way, if you missed one of them, you can go back and take a listen, see the time capsule of Josh's journey with Twitch and the community and what he's been doing. And I just want to say thank you for continuing to come back and being a guest. And I love to be able to get to do these kind of different episodes, just like checking in, hanging out, seeing what's going on, and seeing where you're going.
I wouldn't mind that at all. It's fun. And like you said, it really is a time capsule. And not only do I enjoy answering these types of questions, and it's kind of like a QA in a lot of ways. People are super curious about what I'm getting into, and maybe don't always get those personal interactions with me as much as I used to on stream. I can't always answer those questions that come in. So it's fun to give people another avenue to maybe connect with me. And I appreciate you for providing that. So thank you. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be hanging out here, David.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.